Hey everybody, welcome to kind of an update video for initial DIY mods. I wanted to kind of explain a little bit of why I haven't posted some videos in the last couple of weeks. Basically, this little cutie right here, he got really sick. He actually almost died. I'll let him run around. He pretty much almost died twice. Basically what ended up happening was he developed what's called an intussusception, which is where the intestine actually folds over itself. Let me see if I can kind of demonstrate with something. I'll use this pant leg. Alright, so basically think of an intestine kind of like a tube. What ended up happening was that it ended up folding over itself, and that actually cut down the area that food could pass through, and he ended up, he lost a lot of weight. He ended up, that area didn't get any blood flow, so the tissue actually ended up dying and became necrotic. So that dead tissue, even after that, kind of began to getting to the toxic level where it was able to develop an infection and everything else. So it got really bad really quickly. We went to 2 vets locally that they said nothing was wrong. You know, he was vomiting and he wasn't able to keep anything down. He wasn't able to digest any food. So of course, my wife and I were extremely worried for our kitten, and sure enough, you know, he's not playing anymore. He's just kind of laying around. He eats and then throws up, and basically I was just worried for him. So we ended up going to a 3rd vet about an hour away in Michigan, and they were able to figure it out. The 2 vets we went to locally, we told them to take x-rays. We told them to actually look and see what they could find, and they didn't want to listen. The 3rd vet not only did x-rays, but then did ultrasound. The x-rays showed a mild blockage, but a bit hard to tell since there wasn't any solid mass. And then the ultrasound actually ended up showing that he had a blockage, a tissue blockage inside of his intestine, and that they had to go into emergency surgery pretty much right then. So they prepped him overnight, they gave him some fluids, helped build up his strength a little bit, and then he went into surgery. After that first surgery happened, he actually ended up coming home after I think he stayed at the hospital at the vet for about 4 nights, 5 days, through a holiday weekend of Labor Day, I think. Yeah, Labor Day. And we got him back, and he was finally able to eat normally, and only giving him certain foods that wouldn't agitate his stomach. Well, he ended up developing an abscess in his intestine right next to the area where the intestines were actually stitched back together. So they basically pulled out his entire intestine, pulled it out, chopped out the dead section, which is about 2 inches of his intestine, and again, he's a very tiny kitten. And then they stitched it all back together. Well, he developed an abscess, which is similar to like a cyst, where that stitching was happening, and ended up abscess ruptured and caused a hole, and then basically intestinal fluid and bacteria and food, everything from the digestive tract basically poured into this abdomen, which again is also not a good thing. He started having issues. He started to repeat the symptoms again, and we were worried. He ended up having a fever and started getting an infection, so we had to take him back to the hospital. He went back into surgery that night. Here's actually a picture. He went in for an ultrasound. He came back already prepped for surgery, and they were basically going to get him into surgery right then. They called us back at 8:30, almost 9 o'clock at night, letting us know that the surgery was done, and that he seemed to everything be okay. They repaired the area, but instead of getting stitches this time, he nearly died on the operating table. His body temp dropped significantly, so in a rush to finish the surgery, they actually stapled him shut, and they put 16 staples down his belly. Definitely a lot of kind of roller coaster with this kitten that we got. We've really taken a shine to him. I mean, he's kind of like our first kid for my wife and I. Obviously, we're newlyweds, so we're super excited. This is kind of like our first kid together. But again, there's so much happening, and we ended up getting this kitten, and understanding that we have to take care of pets, but really not thinking that within the first month of owning this pet that we would end up spending $2,000 or almost $2,000 on surgery. It ended up being right around $1,800, not including, it was about a 60-mile round trip. So all the fuel that we ended up using, we drove up to Michigan probably somewhere in the ballpark of like 7 times just to get him on follow-ups, to get the staples removed. We actually got them removed today, to get the stitches checked, to get x-rays and follow-up x-rays and ultrasounds and everything else just to take care of this kitten. So basically, in order to kind of help offset the burden of that, like I said, it's $2,000 to basically save our kitten. We ended up starting a GoFundMe. The link is gofundme.com/help-Keisuke. For those people that are initial D fans out there, Keisuke obviously being one of the race car drivers, which of course fits with this channel so well. So you can see the link, it's in the description. You can click the cards here. Once again, it really does help out. I mean, this kitten is basically most of our life now, in terms of, just take care of him. He's such a joy to have around the house. I built him a cat tree. He's jumping all over the furniture and everything else, and it's just such a great presence to have here. And of course, it's extremely saddening to see him go through so many surgeries and pain medications and different, just so many different things so quickly, that of course we worried about him. So hopefully, some of y'all can help donate some funds to really help alleviate that burden, and again to hopefully keep Keisuke nice, healthy, and strong, so he can grow up into being a full-size cat, which for him is still a very tiny-sized cat because of his breed. But that's basically all I can say about Keisuke, without getting overly emotional or sad or anything. Because again, I tend to fear for the worst. So he's been doing really well, pulling strong, and which is good.
And so one more thing that I wanted to add with this GoFundMe. Now, obviously, the sky's the limit as far as collecting donations, and I think a lot of people know how GoFundMe works. But basically, we only want to cover what the surgery actually cost us. So basically, once we raise our money to cover that cost, basically any excess that's donated, if we end up, Keisuke just jumped on. Basically any extra that we get, we actually are going to donate that to a local shelter, animal shelter here in, we're right on the border of Ohio and Michigan. Obviously the veterinary clinic is in Michigan, so we may donate to a local shelter there, or a local shelter here in and around Toledo, Ohio. But basically we want to make sure that if anyone else ends up in this situation where they need to get emergency surgery, there's a lot of strays here, there's a lot of obviously horrendous things like dog fighting, which is absolutely atrocious. A lot of those dogs end up getting rescued and they get brought to veterinary clinics, and hopefully some of this money can go to that. But either way, any excess of the amount that we actually need to cover the expenses, we're donating 100% of that to either local clinics or local shelter. I haven't 100% researched which one specifically. Kind of cross that bridge when we get to it. If we end up getting an extra $300, extra $400, extra $1,000, whatever it is, that's going straight to a shelter. Because again, we want to help take care of other animals, and we understand that there's obviously there's a lot of animals out there that do need help, and especially in the Detroit area, the Michigan area, hell, any big city really. So we really want to make sure that we can give back and contribute any extra funds that we get. So thank you again for all of that, and of course for listening to this.